So welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence first Saturday gathering. My name is Noelle Marshall and I'm here with my beloved Bob Warner.
Hi everyone, we're so delighted you're with us today or later or in timeless time when you see this recording later. Wonderful to have you here, Jennifer and Imogene.
Yes, welcome back Imogene, and we're so anxious to learn more about your work in the Deeptime Network. So before I turn it over to Imogene, who will be our host for this gathering and introduces Jennifer Morgan, I want to tell you a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence. So please stand by. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to you, Imogene Drummond, to introduce Jennifer Morgan. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Please stay muted until you're invited into the conversation, which we're really looking forward to. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Noelle. And thank you, Noelle and Bob, for the great work that you're doing and for hosting this today and your whole series of Co-Creators Convergence events. And I want to thank Tex for his idea that Jennifer present and for co-hosting today's event with me. It's a pleasure and honor to introduce Jennifer Morgan, who is the founder and president of the Deeptime Network. Jennifer is an award-winning author, storyteller, and educator. She has been inspired by the work of Teilhard de Chardin, Maria Montessori, Thomas Berry, and Brian Swimme, among others. Her universe story trilogy, Born with a Bang, From Lava to Life, and Mammals Who Morph, are used in classrooms around the world, particularly in Montessori schools, as part of the cosmic education curriculum. Her books have won many awards, including the Teacher's Choice Award, the Nautilus semifinalist, highest ratings from the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and endorsements from Jane Goodall, Neil deGrasse Tyson, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, Thomas Berry, Brian Swimme, and others. She is also vice president of the American Teilhard Association and a member of the advisory board of the Religious Naturalist Association. So you can see why I'm excited to present Jennifer today.
Thank you so much, Imogene. And thank you so much to Tex and Imogene for making the connection with the Co-Creators Convergence. I'm very excited to connect with this organization, which I haven't before. And of course, I've been a longtime admirer of Barbara Marx Hubbard and her landmark book on conscious evolution, which I think most everybody who's been working in this field has read at one point or another. And I'm so super excited to see Larry and Jean Edwards, because they are the ones at Genesis Farm back in 1997 when I took the Earth Literacy program there. and they were the teachers along with Miriam McGillis. And this experience utterly changed my life. And we had an assignment. Remember the assignment, Larry, where we were told to tell the story in our own way. And I decided to tell it in the first person. And I really pushed my own boundaries in that telling. And it was from that point forward when I got the idea about writing the books for children. So, and everything else, everything that's happened in my life since then goes back to that experience at Genesis Farm. So thank you. And I'm so excited that you're here today. Thank you. Thank you. So I think we'll start with just a short meditation, a time to just take a breath and come into this moment. And I'll very meditatively read a quote from Thomas Berry. But if everybody could just close your eyes and take in a big breath. Just feel yourself sitting on your chair. Be conscious of the weight of your body. The weight of your body embraced by gravity, holding you to earth. Be aware of the earth holding you right now. It takes a universe to bring humans into being. A universe to educate humans. A universe to fulfill the human mode of being. It takes a universe to bring humans into being. A universe. A universe to educate humans. A universe to fulfill the human mode of being. It takes a universe to bring humans into being. A universe to educate humans. A universe to fulfill the human mode of being. And now you can come back into the room and gently open your eyes. And look around and see the faces of the other people here in this meeting. So the topic of this talk today is break down to break through, a cosmic way forward. So when we look around the world today, we see lots and lots of examples of breakdown. And I'm just going to invite people to write into the chat box or raise your hand with examples of breakdown that are happening now that are of great concern to you. They're things that really cause a lot of fear, actually. You know, what concerns you? What are the deep, deep concerns you have when you look around and you see what is happening? And we can all look and see what's going on in the chat box. We've got war, racial injustice, catastrophic climate change, climate income inequality, food insecurity, glaciers melting, the extraction process to energize our way of life, sea level rise, human rights, loss of biodiversity, methanol releasing, illusionary borders in our minds, poverty, a new way of thinking and being is needed. Destruction of the earth, restriction of freedom and bodily autonomy, loss of biodiversity, division, hatred, lack of cosmic education, poor educational system, breakdown of our government, democracy in general. Well, that's for sure. Lack of compassion and seeing of oneness. Pollinator loss, that's a really big one. All of these are big. Greed and selfishness. People using an old paradigm to navigate a brand new world. Yeah. Loss of connection to the natural world, to the cosmos. Oh, thank you for that, Annie. Yeah. Thank you for all of these. As we can see, there's just so many things going on, so many breakdowns, so many things that scare us. You know, it's scary. So what are we to, how are we to handle this? You know, that was a great quote from Barbara Marx Hubbard. We all have a little part to shift humankind. What is that? How do we think about that in the light of all these things that are going on? So this is where centering ourselves in the cosmos and really learning about the cosmos, understanding it, seeing what we're part of is so absolutely crucial, because how the universe works, the universe is pretty effective in the way that it works. So the more we can learn about that and embody it, the more able we will be to help to create the next level for our planet Earth. So I'm going to share the screen now. Break down to break through, a cosmic way forward. So what can we learn from the universe about how the universe transforms? Well, let's just start with this. The universe, once upon a time, was hot plasma, and we're talking 1,000 trillion degrees Celsius. 1,000 trillion degrees Celsius exploding. And over time, turned into this. A mother and child reading a book. How did this happen? Let's look at that again. From this to this. How did that happen? What can we learn from that? What can we learn from it, and how can we apply it to what's happening in the world today in our own large and small ways? So let's look at this incredible thing that has happened. So this tunnel was created, this visual was created by WMAP, the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe. And it shows time and cosmic evolution over time. On the far left is the beginning. On the far right is the present. And so what scientists did, based on the idea that where we are right now, we are receiving light. We're constantly receiving light. And this light comes at us in different wavelengths, depending on when the event happened that emitted the light. So events that happened more recently have shorter wavelengths. The events that happened longer ago have longer wavelengths. So you can take these slices of light and you can piece them together to give a picture of cosmic evolution. So on the right, the present, where the children are, this is where the galaxies are. If we go back in time, we go to quasars, and then we go back to the time before stars. So another thing to explain this, see where I'm putting my cursor, this line here is our horizon. So this is how far we can see. Imagine we're right in the center there. So we can see up this way, we can see that way, we can see this way, we can see that way. That's all the present. But we can also look back in time down through the tunnel. So how did we get from this beginning to the children? Well, we've got time equals 0, far left. 14 billion years, almost 14 billion years ago. It's actually 13.8 billion. Then we come up to 380,000 years, when the universe was 380,000 years old. So this is the baby universe. Again, this is the WMAP image, Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe. And it shows what the universe looked like as a baby. So this is before stars. And this is when hydrogen, the very first element, is being formed. It's when the protons and electrons come together and form the very first element. And you're going to notice that it's kind of splotchy, kind of like cottage cheese. And that's really, really important, because for gravity to go to work, you have to have imbalance. Now, here's like one of your first signs. We're reading scripture here. I want you to get, we're reading scripture. We're reading the universe. It's imbalance that makes it is necessary in order for anything to happen. For something to happen with gravity, you've got to have some imbalance, because that's going to allow the particles to come together. If it were even, if we're all even, then nothing would happen. It would just stay that way. Absolutely nothing would happen. So again, this is before stars. Then the hydrogen came together at that point, and now we have hydrogen clouds. Hydrogen clouds. It's filled mostly with hydrogen, a little bit of some helium, and then we see a little bit of lithium. So these are primordial clouds. And the clouds come together and form primordial stars. These are not like the stars we see today. These were the primordial stars, because the primordial stars are made up only of hydrogen, lithium, and helium. And then in our own Milky Way galaxy, for us, there was a colossal star. There may have been many colossal stars, or there were for sure. But as far as our story is concerned, we know there was at least one, probably more. And inside of that colossal star, the hydrogen was fused together to form many, many more elements, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But before we get to that, I'm just going to tell you the bigger story. That star was so large that it died in a massive supernova. And when it died in that supernova, it created more elements, which I'm going to show you in a minute when I show you the periodic table. So that supernova happened around 7 billion years ago. As you can see, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to ourselves. We're getting closer to the kids, but we got a long way to go. We got a way long way to go. Step by step. So let's look at the periodic table. By this point, well, let me just say, inside the Big Bang, made it hydrogen, see where my cursor is, hydrogen, helium, and lithium. Only those three elements inside the Big Bang. Then inside of primordial stars, these elements from number 4 all the way to 26, iron, were created. I'm very conscious of Larry being here since he's the chemist. Larry, we might have to bring you in later to talk more about this. It's great to be talking about this with you here, Larry. But now let's just talk about this for a minute, because again, this is scripture. I want you to look at this like scripture. Okay, we had the Big Bang, hydrogen, helium, lithium. Then we go number 4 up to 26. But before we go beyond 26, I just want you to take a look at, see helium top right. Here's carbon, number 6. Carbon is made out of 3 heliums. You take 3 heliums to make carbon. What does that tell you? That tells you about making new things about things that exist already. It's about new partnerships. The partnership of 3 heliums made a carbon. That's what your brain is made out of. Add in another helium, you got oxygen. That's what you're breathing right now. All of these things were made inside that primordial star before it exploded. Then at 26, you have this thing. See, a star holds its shape based on an outer going force and an inner going force, gravity versus releasing of energy. That's what holds the shape. But when you hit iron, it doesn't have the outward going force. So the gravity takes over and it implodes and then it explodes. And what happens in the explosion? All the rest of these elements are created, except the man-made ones, which were made on Earth. But all of these elements were created in the explosion, all the heavy metals, the gold, and so on. So at this point in our story, we have all the elements we need for life, but we don't have life yet. We have everything we need for life, but life has not started yet. What can we learn from that? Think about everything that's going on in the world today. All the players, the ingredients. What is the possibility here that we can't even see yet? If you were back then, after all these elements for life were created, looking around, seeing these little particles floating through space after that explosion, the supernova explosion, never in your wildest dream would you have said, oh, that means life's coming. It would have been beyond your imagination. So we have to ask the question, what's beyond our imagination right now? We can see some things, but there is so much we can't see. So now we have these clouds. They're called enriched clouds. That's what scientists call them, enriched clouds. Why are they enriched? Because they have all of these new elements. We went the hydrogen, helium, lithium. Now we've got all those new elements. Everything we need for life is right there. And we've got this cloud that comes together in a disk and gets tighter and denser and flares into the sun in the middle and flares, the solar system forms. This is about 5 billion years ago. And of course, our very, very precious Earth was one of the planets. And again, the planets are formed out of the very same dust that the sun was formed from. It's not formed something different. It's just that the sun is bigger and denser. That's why it's burning. I remember when I was a kid, I thought the planets were something very different from the sun. That they're made out of something entirely different. No, they're made out of the same thing. And then on Earth, our precious, precious planet, the very first Earthlings begin to twitch and multiply. They're bacteria. And if you haven't studied bacteria, you got to study bacteria because they're just so way cool. So first of all, they don't die. They're immortal. They go swimming around forever and splitting apart, splitting apart, splitting apart. They might get killed, but they don't have internally programmed death like we have. Death had to be invented. Larry taught me all about that. Sorry, Larry, I can't help it. The invention of death, amazing invention, and it was crucial. The invention of death was a crucial invention for the story of the universe, the story of life, and for multicellular creatures. But anyway, back to bacteria here. What the things that are so cool about bacteria is, their DNA is floating loosely around the entire cell. And then they can just release some DNA out into the water, and then some other bacteria comes swimming on by and picks it up and then can figure out how to live in all these different places, like in polar ice caps and inside volcanoes and so on. And so I'm giving a very truncated version of the story here. Go read my books. If you haven't read my books, you got to go read my books, because it's just a great telling, just being totally honest. And then from bacteria, all the forms of life come into being. So you look all around at the unbelievable diversity. What does that tell you? It tells you the universe likes diversity. The Thomas Berry governing principles, which, we could spend just weeks on, which has to do with differentiation, interiority, and communion. The differentiation, we see it all around. And why is that so important? It's because, for one thing, if environmental conditions change, there's going to be somebody who's going to survive. So differentiation is crucial. If everything were the same and it was adapted to a certain environment, and then the environment changes and that thing dies, now what do you have? So differentiation is crucial for survival and for thriving. So now we're going to go to a deep time place. What's a deep time place? A deep time place is where the human psyche connects with the cosmos. That's a deep time place. Now, I've done storytelling now for over 20 years. I've lost track of time. My first book came out in 2002. So what does that make it? Anyway, and I do it with children. The same thing happens with children, where I can see it in their eyes, where they hear the story and they go to this deep place. They go to a really deep place where they're connecting to the cosmos. They might not say that, but there's something happening where they're connecting to the reality that is larger than themselves. And this is what our creation stories are about. All cultures have creation stories. Why? So humanity can connect to the cosmos. We want to connect beyond ourselves. That's what our creation stories are doing. And the cosmic story is doing the same thing. And now we're really appreciating the magnitude of the story. We're actually, as humankind, is just barely beginning to really come to a recognition of this new step in humanity to understanding the magnitude of the universe itself and what it has done to make this moment possible. So I'm going to play a video of me telling a story from my first book. And I use this video in teacher trainings. So there's just a little snippet in the beginning. I cut off most of the video, but there's still a little snippet there when I'm telling them about how to use props. And then I go into telling the story. The story is told in the voice of the universe, so it'll be the universe talking. And again, that goes back to my experience at Genesis Farm when I told the story in the first person. It was so powerful, that experience I had back at Genesis Farm, that I wanted to keep repeating it. And when I do it, I do feel this deep connection, you know, with the cosmos. So let's see, what else do I want to tell you before starting? I think that's it. So on the other end of the video, we'll just sit in silence for about a minute. And then we'll just think about and talk together about, if you want, you know, if you feel so inclined, totally fine to just, you know, stay silent or whatever. How does living inside of this bigger perspective, how does that shift things so that it gives us that sense of grounding in a reality that's bigger than ourselves, such that we can handle what's going on, such that we have the perspective and we have the emotional fortitude, because we are the universe. We are the universe right now, doing this thing that we are doing. So it's not like we're just in the universe, we are the universe. And that's a crucial recognition. So let's watch the video, and then we'll just be in silence for a little bit afterwards.
There's a story my grandmother used to tell me when I was little. She said, "You know what, Jennifer? When you look at the floor or you look at a table and it looks like it's still, you might think it's not moving. But you know what? If you could make yourself so tiny and slip down into the table, you know what you would find? You would find vibrating atoms everywhere. The whole universe is moving. The whole universe is a vibration. The whole universe is alive." That's what my grandmother told me. So can you see what I'm doing? This is like a slow invitation. You're pulling people into this deep time state of mind. So then, as far as sound, I like to use this thunder tube. And then I say, when I finish this sound, I'm going to start the story. So are you ready to go on a long journey way back in time? Okay, here we go. And I'll be speaking in the voice of the universe. My dear Earthlings, you may not know me. I am the universe, and it's time for us to get to know each other. After all, I'm 14 billion years old now, and how old do you think you are? 5, 10, 20, 50, 100? No. You are 14 billion years old too. You are part of me. You've always been part of me from the very beginning. That's why I'm going to tell you a story about me, which is a story about you too. Now, when you were born in your human form, you started out as a tiny speck buried in the dark inside your mother. But you couldn't stay small. You grew and grew, and a very special day, your birthday, you were born into the light. Well, I too, the universe, had a very special day when I was born. But there was no light for me to be born into. I too started out as a tiny, tiny speck, smaller than a piece of dust under your bed. But even though I was so tiny, I was filled with wild and dazzling dreams and brilliant colors, bright yellow, molten red, and piercing blue. There were creatures in my dreams too, like insects alighting on flowers, reptiles basking on hot rocks in the sun, and birds swooping down on their prey. And I saw you too, gazing at stars. Could all these things happen? I wonder. Could I roar as a lion? Could I purr as a kitten? Could I know feelings like love and sadness and wonder? Could all these things happen? I decided to take the very first step, and I blew up to a cabbage-sized universe. I was only this big. Everything that would ever be was squished inside me when I was only this big. I was a baby universe. Then I really went for it. I blew up to the size of a galaxy, and I kept on growing. I had to find the right speed for a universe to grow, you know. If I grew just a little bit too slowly, my own gravity would have overpowered me and crushed me into nothingness. Or if I grew just a little bit too quickly, I would have blown apart and disappeared into nothingness. But everything was just right. Now, that's not to say that things were peaceful, mind you. Oh, no. There was chaos everywhere, glowing bolts of energy everywhere. And then the bolts of energy shrank into tiny, tiny, tiny things. They were tiny particles, the very first stuff. These tiny particles were rampaging around in the energy. I kept on growing, and I got a little cooler. And that's when some of those particles came together, and they formed something amazing. They formed the very first element, the very first atoms. The very first protons and electrons came together to form hydrogen. Hydrogen. Yes, number one on the periodic table. I do go in order, you know. Well, I kept on growing, and now I was filled with hydrogen clouds everywhere. And then a force began to go to work, a force called gravity. Everything that's stuff has gravity. So all the little particles had a gravitational pull, and they began to pull together, get tighter, denser, tighter, denser, tighter, and then flared into the very first stars. Yes, stars were lighting up for the very first time, yes, once upon a time there were no stars, and then there were stars. Well, the stars too had a gravitational pull, and they liked to gather together in galaxies or star cities. In one very special galaxy for you called the Milky Way, and in one arm of that Milky Way, there was a colossal star, a mother star that was very special for you. And she took that hydrogen and she made bunches, and she baked it, and she baked it, and she baked it, and she baked it, and she baked it. And she turned it into lots of new elements like carbon that would one day make your brain, like oxygen that you would breathe, and like calcium that would make your bones strong and hard. But for your sun and your whole solar system to be born, your mother star had to die. She blew herself apart in a massive supernova, blasting her stardust off into space. Now all the little bits of calcium, all the little bits of carbon, little bits of oxygen, and all the other elements were floating and floating through space. And then that force went to work again, gravity, and it pulled together all those little bits of things. They came together, came together, came together, came together, and began to spin slowly in the form of a disk. And the center of the disk flared into your sun, and all the planets formed in the outer parts of the disk. Well, that third planet from the sun, rambunctious young planet, I say, your Earth, covered with volcanoes, spewing out gases that went up and formed the atmosphere, spewing out moisture that went up and formed clouds. And then Earth began to cool, and it started to rain. The great rain. For 1,000,000 years, it rained and rained and rained and covered your Earth with oceans. And underneath the ocean, there were rips in the ocean floor. That's where little hydrogen bubbles were coming up. Remember hydrogen? My very first element, there it was again, right there in the ocean floor. Would this be a good place for life to begin to twitch and multiply? Well, that story will have to wait for another day, my dear Earthlings. Until then, I send you my very best from the cosmos. It's true. I am you, and you are me.
Let's take a moment to just really be aware of what's present right now. Thank you, Bob. Bob says, I feel very young and very old at the same time. Gratitude, people are saying gratitude, potential awe, connection. I belong here. I have a right to be here. I'm even needed. Yes, absolutely. Barbara Marx Hubbard always told us, you are the universe in person. Yes. Oh, I feel this. Oh, thank you, Noelle. Yes, I feel this. Ah, I have so many big brothers and sisters of many forms. Beautiful. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Annie. So moving, it resonates profoundly. Sam King, the cosmic creativity within us holds, holds the power to transform ourselves, our communities, and the world. This is a profound wellspring of hope. Exactly, yes. Humanity is the cabbage size, right, Tom? Exactly. So when the human connects to the cosmos and is coming from that cosmic awareness, how does that change how we think about the chaos in the world? How does that change how we think about breakdown? When we look back at how the universe transformed inside of chaos, in so many cases, over and over and over again, the tearing apart of forms and creating new things, and the forming of new partnerships, the forming of new partnerships. What are the new partnerships that exist right now that are ready to be formed, that will usher in the new era? Thomas Berry talked about the Ecozoic era. We're at the end of the Cenozoic. The Cenozoic is the age of mammals. We're at the end of the Cenozoic now. We're on the brink of hopefully an ecozoic era in which we can create many more partnerships with the earth and the whole of the earth community, living and non-living. Everything's living though. Hard to make those distinctions now once we really study how the universe works. Does anybody, I think we have a few minutes before we're going to go into, I'm just going to explain some things about the Deeptime Network. Does anybody want to raise their hand and make a comment? I love having all these comments in the chat box. It's just great. It's wonderful. But if anybody feels so moved, you can just raise your hand in Zoom. And if not, that's totally fine too. How are you doing, Larry? How's it going over there, Larry? He's got his thumb up. And Jean, Larry and Jean. That's great. Okay, well, I think I'll go into.
I see Hasina has her hand up.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. I didn't see that. Go ahead, Hasina.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was amazing. And it just makes one think that we're so connected to the universe just through that story. And if we could tell that, then when we actually make decisions, we're making decisions almost on behalf of the universe, for the universe. So it's a weighted responsibility compared to just saying, I'm going to do this today, with that separation. And I think that's so key for especially the next generations.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Hasina. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that, Jeffrey. Everything calling out to be together. Marianne, the noosphere is incubating these. Acting on behalf of the universe. Yeah, that's what Hasina was saying. Marvelous. Yeah.
Well, okay. I do have a question, Jennifer.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than it was just spectacular. And maybe this is jumping ahead, but we were very excited when the James Webb telescope launched Christmas Day. We got up early. That was like opening the gift. And is it? Do you have? You said what's new or what's coming. I'm just excited about what that might bring to us. I don't know if you had a comment or something about that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Noelle. Yeah, I meant to bring that up earlier. Tex was telling me, you've got to talk about the James Webb. Yeah, this is really exciting because we're going to get even clearer images of the early universe with the James Webb telescope. And it is on its way to the Lagrange 2 point, which is, it's beyond the moon. And it's at a point where it can stay stable for a very, very long time and keep sending us back pictures. And I believe that's supposed to start happening in June or probably more likely July. Oh, we have Sarbmeet here. He's our expert on the James Webb. But we in our leadership program, we were watching the Webb or the James Webb. We had pictures of it and the unfolding of it, the way it almost looks like an eye unfolding. So if you can imagine, the human being, the universe in the form of the human has created this device to enlarge our sight, to enlarge cosmic sight, to look back on the beginning of the cosmos and to get an even more profound understanding of how the heck we got here. You know, the religious stance to life is one of gratitude, right? Gratitude and awe. Gratitude and awe. And, this is the James Webb, WMAP, all these efforts to understand are giving us that experience of awe and wonder. Is such a profound and amazing time to be alive.
Jennifer, can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the first star that you showed in your story, that very first star, our hope is that the James Webb Telescope will actually be able to tell us about that first star. That's how amazing this telescope is.
Wow. Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for that, Sarmeet.
So then I have one follow-up question.
Yeah.
What was before the Big Bang, or does that get into spiritual or religious beliefs?
Well, what's
Or was
interesting.
there something?
Well, when my first book came out, I live in Princeton, New Jersey. And I took 5 courses while I was working on my books at Princeton, 2 in cosmology. And I spent a lot of time with cosmologists. And I have some who are still my friends. All these many years later, I go out on walks with them. And when that first book came out in 2002, it was verboten. It was verboten in science to ask the question, what was there before the Big Bang? Because you could only look back, we could only talk about what we had some evidence for. You couldn't conjecture about what was there beforehand. But now things have changed so much in the intervening years where the scientists themselves are asking the question, what was there before the Big Bang? And Paul Steinhardt, who is one of the cosmologists right here at Princeton, has been asking that question and explored the theory of a big bounce, that maybe there was a universe before that shrank and then expands and then shrinks, which is an alignment with a Hindu understanding. Or maybe Sarmeet, you might want to speak to this to some point, but oh my gosh, it's slipping my mind right now. But anyway, there's the Atacama observatories that have been built down in Chile this is one of their questions that they're exploring, is based on the evidence that we have, it's going to give some more indication as to what was there before the Big Bang. But anyway, for me, in my mind, as a layperson, the big breakthrough is that it's interesting that we're talking about it now, whereas we weren't before, in the science world I'm talking about. Sarmeet, or Larry, do you want to add anything to that? Or Sarmeet, how about you?
Yeah, just a couple of words. First of all, I want to say that Jennifer is absolutely right that the things that science is able to now ask questions about were absolutely anathema not too long ago. In fact, maybe about 100 years ago, you could not ask the question how the universe began, because that question didn't make any sense for the folks. And now we know what has happened as a result of the scientific inquiry into that. And the same is true about this idea about what happened before the Big Bang. We really don't know at this point, but people are starting to investigate and create theories of what could have happened before the Big Bang. So who knows where our knowledge will be in another few decades.
Yeah, thank you, Sarmeet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just go through these remaining slides that Imogene wanted me to do. Otherwise, she's gonna hang me, I think. So, and then we'll get back to more questions. Okay, this won't take long.
Yeah, and actually, Jennifer, if you want to just keep going with this, no worries. It's up to you.
Well,
However you feel the flow is.
well, I want to get back to this stuff because this is the real fun stuff. But
Yeah.
but I do
And
yeah, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to mention in terms of what you're saying, I remember you had a Zoom meeting with a cosmologist, a scientist from Princeton a number of years ago, like
Yes.
4 years ago. And one of the questions was, is there a multiverse? And he said, we're not interested in that as scientists because we can't measure it. We're only interested in what we can measure. And I found that very interesting because for me, that's a very different mindset. So it explained why they're being the way they are.
Exactly.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have one little factoid.
Yes.
My friend Father Joe tells me that it was a Catholic priest who actually came up with the theory and the name of the Big Bang, and I thought that was rather interesting. So just a little factoid throw in there.
George Lemaitre.
Yep.
I couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the man. That's the man.
Yes. Yeah. And it was I think it was actually Fred. What was his last name?
Fred Hoyle?
Yeah,
Fred Hoyle?
Fred Hoyle, who coined the term Big Bang, and
In a very derogatory way.
Yeah, he was like, these people who think this thing started in a Big Bang. And well, anyway, that term stuck, and here we have it. But it was the Belgian priest who came up with the idea of a very small beginning.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another interesting factoid is that Einstein did not believe it. He actually made fun of Lemaitre. And then after a few years, he realized that he was wrong and Lemaitre was right.
Yeah. Yeah. Einstein actually changed his own equations in order to make the universe static.
That is correct.
Not evolving. And he called this the biggest error of his entire life. The idea of an evolving universe was very anathema for him.
Yes.
And
for many people, for many, many people.
And for many people, yeah. I mean, we, we're in such a different phase now of human understanding. We're still grappling with it, but can you imagine that Einstein, somebody of his intelligence, just could not handle the idea of the universe evolving?
Yep.
And wasn't it very late in his life that he accepted quantum theory?
He actually never did. He never accepted quantum theory until he died. I mean, never. He never did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought at the very latest he did.
No, not even on his deathbed.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me just share the screen for just a few minutes to show these slides that, okay, so we're gonna go here. All right. Okay, so we've been using this term, I'm gonna do a very truncated version of this. Deep time principles. What are deep time principles? No, wait a minute. I've got to go back. No. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Oh, okay. What's a deep time perspective? Okay, so deep time perspective is what we've been talking about, which is placing everything inside of this story of the universe, the story of cosmic evolution. And we talked about this. We have deep time principles. This is on the Deeptime Network. I'm president of the Deeptime Network. And these 4 principles are very much core to what our courses are about. One is context, the importance of, what you choose as your context. And if you start with this biggest context of the universe, that shifts your thinking about everything. And then an understanding of matrix, which has to do with all the relationships that we're embedded in And matrix is about embeddedness. And then interiority and subjectivity. What's the interiority of everything? What are we all experiencing? So that is crucial for how the future unfolds based on what we're experiencing. And then action has to do with a philosophy of action that has to do with participating in evolution. And Thomas Berry talked about integrating 4 wisdom traditions. And that's what is integrated inside of a new cosmology. A deep time perspective is one example or one term that's used in this whole expanding area of a new cosmology. It might be called the great story. It might be called the new story. It might be called epic of evolution. There are quite a few different terms, but it has to do with integrating these things: science, indigenous spirituality, classical religions, and women's wisdom. And on the Deeptime Network, we're building an online social and educational network inside of this perspective. And we offer courses. We provide a place for members to publish blogs and resources, and we have a social media network. Imogene is doing an amazing job with our social media network, and members can connect with each other. The courses, we have professional development for teachers, and then a deep time leadership program. It's 9 months. We're running it right now. We'll be starting another one in September. It's 3 modules. The first is the introduction to the new cosmology. The second is applying the new cosmology. That's where we look at case studies for how it's being applied in many different fields. And the third is the practicum, so where people do their own projects. And examples of just 2 courses that we have coming up right now within the next few months. One is an emergent dialogue practice group. This is based on a form of dialogue developed by the physicist David Bohm. And it has to do with tapping into the larger energy field. So if dialogue comes from that place, as opposed to just our narrow little personal fields, then it changes everything. And another course we have that actually Sarmeet will be teaching starting in August. It's 4 weeks on quantum wisdom, essential insights from a revolutionary science. It'll combine the hard science with the insights that we can draw from it. So it's exactly what we've been doing here today, which is looking at the science and then pulling out the wisdom and then applying it. Who are the people who are participating in our programs? Everybody. In short, everybody. From teachers, artists of all kinds, therapists. We have quite a few therapists, and in the leadership program, they're now meeting on their own to apply what they're learning in the leadership program. Scientists, religious, activists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, many, many more. And here's the website, Deeptime Network, www.dtnetwork.org. So that's a little whirlwind there. Oh, we talked about that. Okay, so let's stop this. So let's see, I think we have about 5 more minutes. If anybody else has a question, we've got about 5 more minutes before Noel does announcements.
It's okay to go a little longer if need be. It's just faster.
Okay.
So don't feel any time pressure.
Okay, let's see what we got.
And I believe Tex has his hand up. It's always hidden in his curtain back there.
Go for it, Tex.
Thank you, Noel and Bob, for curating the co-creators Convergence, Legacy of Barbara Marx Hubbard. And thank you, Imogene, for hosting. And thank you, Jennifer, for another awesome, soul-stirring, I would say. It's a soul-stirring presentation, to become aware of the deep time perspective. Now, to let the others know, I've been following the course, really went rather not with great enthusiasm when I started the course, because I thought it would be just a bit too deep, too much science and all that. But it's been a great experience, and I thank Ola. I see Ola, Azra here, and even Annie. It's through them that I got that I became aware of the Deeptime Network, and they sort of insisted, well, you really need to get familiar with the Deeptime perspective. Now, at this stage, I feel that you know, the intelligence of the human beings, the intelligence of human beings, have allowed us to develop sciences, the various branches of science that have helped us to probe into, you know, life, into even into the origin of our existence through all this equipment, like you know, the James Webb telescope that will be revealing even more to us. I think now it comes upon us who have this knowledge, who are aware of this, to act consciously in coherence with that. We need to be, I feel, you know, we are really the consciousness of the universe at this point, and we need to be moved to act in solidarity, you know, to collaborate for the common good, be it in terms of ecological thrivability, be it in terms of peace, nurturing peace on Earth. Now we human beings, aware of this, these facts that science is revealing to us, we need to act with probity. It's good to probe into the past, but now with probity, that is with a certain objectivity, backed by the science, we need to really act for the common good. This is my hope, that as more and more become aware of the deep time perspective, that we will build a critical mass that will, you know, evolve humankind to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Tex. Ooh, Jean. Go ahead, Jean. Unmute yourself.
Hi. Jennifer, a deep, deep gratitude for the example of how action, creativity evolves out of breakdown. You are definitely the grandmother of our story. And Larry and I are sitting here in tears. And it's hard to express how the question you ask, how does breakdown, how do we go through that and come out with a breakthrough? And, you know, our first experiences together, we didn't know quite what we were being pulled to, but it was enormous and big. And we had no words really. It was a creative impulse towards something bigger than what we knew. And it is your example and your life that you have found words for what we were first pulled to. I think that is the creative process that we're involved in now, is we have an impulse towards something bigger, and we don't have the words personally, and it takes that time of cooking in the oven of creativity. And you are such a beautiful example. You've never given up. You've always found new ways, and you're bringing people together. It is It's such a living example of how the universe works. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation.
Larry. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Jean. Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Jean.
You-
And thank you, Jennifer. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. I had many thoughts. It reminded me of those days, but it also struck me that when we represent the universe, the process, it is best represented as female. In other words, as you presented, because you were there with your cloak and movement, and I am you and you are me, exactly what a new mother does with her newborn child. And many cultures did represent the unknown, the process of the universe, the creator of the universe, whatever word for that. But that is to integrate with that it is best to, or at least I personally now am more drawn to the verbiage. We need words to say things like this, of a female. That, in other words, the goddess representation of the creator of the universe is a much more powerful, at a much deeper level than other representations. They're all representations of something we understand to some extent, and there is a limit to what we understand. But to see you in your gown and wrapped up and talking, and we have goats out back. And they just had babies. And so that up again, that we're all having babies here. And that's a great tradition that's been going on for 14 billion years. Thank you.
Beautiful, honey.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry.
I know that Carl's had his hand up a couple times, and then Imogene, I'll turn it over to you if Carl wants to come on.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you, Jennifer, for the story. But I can't help but continue to reflect on every story has a deeper story. There is the inside story that also needs to be a part of this story if we are to move forward. And it's that inside story. I refer to this story, the universe story, as a story of love. And Teilhard talks about the whole reality of love as that force that science cannot measure. And so science does not integrate love into the story. And I think we're missing, for me personally, the depths of the story when we don't bring in that inner subjectivity. That's what gives subjectivity its reality, its interiority. And that has to be, for me, it's the most important part of the story, because it's what gives me my being. You know, that I am love in the form of a human. I am the expression of that energy in the form of a human, and it changes everything for me personally and how I perceive what my life is all about, to be that expression of that love energy that brought this whole universe into being. So, you know, if we continue to only talk about the science story, which is great and brings awe and wonder and wisdom, I think we are missing what our ancient, the human longing that gave rise to spirituality, gave rise to religions, is that longing for that depth of reality that sometimes has no words. But anyway, I want to thank you once again. I've seen this presentation now 3 or 4 times from you, Jennifer, and it's always a gift. And it's a gift to be with such a great community of fellow travelers as we are being drawn into our future, unknown as it may be. But we are allowing the future to draw us into becoming more than what we are today. So again, thank you, Jennifer. You are indeed a gift for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, thank you. And I couldn't agree more about, that's why the new cosmology, which includes, the indigenous spirituality and includes the classical religions and includes women's wisdom, as Larry so well pointed out, is the science is a part of it. The science isn't all of it. It informs it, but it's also informed so deeply. I mean, we just had a program on Wednesday on the Deeptime Network with Matt Fox. We had 450 people, and that was about creation spirituality and its role in birthing the new cosmology. Just so central. The insights of the mystics and the amazing understanding they had about the human inside and connecting to the cosmos in a profound way that is about love. It was there already. I mean, they were doing that already. Hildegard of Bingen, Julian of Norwich, Thomas Aquinas, they were already doing this. When he talks about the psalmist talks about the magnificence of the house. And Thomas Aquinas says, the house is the universe. Mm-hmm. And doing this, back in the Middle Ages. So the threads were there. But I so agree with you, Carl, about the importance of the interiority and the importance of using the word love. Love. We're talking love. Mm-hmm. And it's an evolutionary drive. Love is an evolutionary driver. Yeah. It's a powerful, powerful force. Imogene, where are we, Imogene?
I think it's 1:35. So.
I do have a closing quote. Is this the time? Oh, no, Noelle wants to do announcements, right? And then I'll do the closing quote.
No, I just want to say that if anyone would like to get our monthly newsletter, I send it out once a month with who our conversationalists will be for the month. And just put your email in the chat and I will add you to our group. And I know we have Kim Conrad coming up next. She'll be the first Saturday next month. And I think we have Dr. Tom coming up in June or July is going to be our guest on the first Saturday. And but we're also every Thursday night. So you're more than welcome to all of those. We just have conversation like this, about 90 minutes of, I think, bliss. So this has been, okay, I'm going to say one other thing, is that we live in Bristol, Tennessee. And close to us is Jonesboro, Tennessee, which has the International Storytelling Center. And it has 2 weeks almost 24/7 of storytellers from around the world. And they're kind of like juried, not just anybody can show up. But Jennifer, wouldn't it be so great to have your story told at the International Storytelling?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I'll put some information, or Bob will put some information there in the links. It's always like the first week of October, I think it is. But your story is just so compelling, and so many more people need to hear it. So I'm just so grateful for this time, and this has just been joyous. So with that, I'll close, and I'll turn it over to Imogene and yourself. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This has been spectacular.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle. Should I do the closing quote, Imogene? Okay, so this, Carl, this is for you, this closing quote. I must have known you were going to be here. And it's the Teilhard de Chardin quote about love. Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness the energies of love. And then, for a second time in the history of the world, humans will have discovered fire. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Noelle and
Thank
Bob.
you, everybody.
Tex.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.